Welcome back to the Shining Light Press podcast. I'm your host, Freddie Lopez. We have an exciting new guest with us today. She is currently running to become the next governor of New Mexico. In fact, if she is elected, she would actually be the very first Native American woman to become governor of New Mexico. So, without further ado, we'll go straight to it. Please welcome Karen Bedonie. Miss Bedonie, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, it's good. I'm so glad you can make it here. So, we are going to begin first things off. Who is Karen Bedonie and why have you decided to run for governor of New Mexico?
Right. Well, Karen Bedonie, that's me. I'm a mother, a wife. I have 8 children. I am a business owner. I've lived in New Mexico unless I was in school, in my entire life. My family has been here since, before New Mexico was even a state, before the territories were purchased, before, Manifest Destiny began. We have been here, our family, our tribe, our clan. And so when they drew the lines around us, we found ourselves in New Mexico. So we've been here since the beginning, since its inception. And right now I am a New Mexican that has lived, the hardship of poverty, socialism, and we have worked very hard to get out of it. And as I started to push my life forward with my children and trying to achieve self-sufficiency, self-resilience, independence, prosperity, the American dream, that's when you start to be introduced to the politics of today. And it's a very messy and very brutal and very corrupt environment. And the reason why I'm running for governor is because the people's voice is not being heard. We are not being allowed to express what we need. We are force-fed what policies they think we need and what's good for them. So what's good for thee isn't necessarily good for me. And that's what we've been fighting for this entire time in the political realm, is the right to voice our opinions, the rights to have the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and even if you have to keep pushing yourself outside the box of comfort to show that you are more than just a peasant to, the powers that be. So that's the amazing part of America, is we are a republic, and we are, oh, hang on just a minute.
No problem.
So yeah, we are a republic, so that we are able to be represented to each and every one of us have a voice, and we should be able to go and represent ourselves if we choose to. Now, when I went in my congressional campaign during CD3, I started to go from home to home and from community to community, and I was more awakened to the understanding that we are actually very, very similar in our aspirations of having a very good life. God is present in most of these homes. We all pray. We are very decent people. We all believe in that we should keep what we earn, and that taxation, heavy taxation to support those that do not work, is very detrimental to our spirits, because we feel defeated and frustrated. So as I went through this whole part of the campaign, I started to realize, wow, I have more in common with most of these Americans and these other Americans than I've ever known before in my life. And I realized that I am more American than I actually understood I was. And it was a beautiful process. So now that I'm running for governor, it's not because of something it's in me that I want to be famous, or it's an ego trip or anything like that. Actually, this is something that I didn't ask for. It's something that it's very difficult to do. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of fight. And sometimes, you get frustrated and you don't want to keep going, but then you have to. It was called to by the people. And if we say that we are servants of the people and we don't listen to the people, then, who are we really? So and now I found myself on this path. And if I could find someone to inspire me, someone to lead me, to tell me, to ensure me that they're fighting for me and to carry my voice, I wouldn't be in this race. I would actually be home doing what I want to do. But I'm not. I'm out here working so hard. I'm on the road. I don't sleep very often until I'm on the road. I tell a story about that as well. But it's a spiritual journey right now for me. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of wits. And right now the people are nitpicking at me because they can't find anything big enough to destroy me without, due cause, I guess. So they nitpick consistently at me, and I find that sad. But we need to put those things aside and unite as people, and we need to really come together and start to save our state together, because people that come from the outside aren't going to do it for us. They can't, because they don't know what we need. They're not from us. They don't understand what we eat, why we eat it, why the water is precious, why we love our coal and our oil and gas and all of our resources, why education is important to us, why we need not just book education, but we need actual hands-on education, because we are a very hands-on state. Most of our jobs are vocational that are needed and required. So I'm running for governor because I am from the people and of the people. And I know exactly what we've been through, especially with this last governor. Her policies, I've lived through them, just as you have. And for some reason, she doesn't understand what she has really done to us and how many people we have lost to suicide, to death, because the procedures that she took weren't good enough. I mean, and it impacted all of us spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So that's why I'm running. So I'm coming in from a different, I guess, paradigm that anyone's ever seen. And so I'm not harping the same political, rhetoric. I'm not a cookie cutter speech writer. I'm a real person, and I'm talking about the real truth.
That is very admirable. And I apologize for that. I thought it was a bit too dark, but here we are. That is a very admirable trait. There are many people who feel that their voices are just being ignored completely. And I believe you have a very good chance, especially right now. You have a very competitive contenders in this race. Recently, Rebecca Dow, state representative from Truth or Consequences, just joined in the race. You have Tim Walsh, a former staffer to Governor Gary Johnson. You have Sandoval County Commissioner Jay Block, who recently is into the race. You have Greg Zanetti from Albuquerque, a financier and former National Guard Brigadier General, who's there. So you have many contenders in this race. So how are you going to put yourself out in the field as the most unique candidate to be the GOP nominee for governor? Because you've got a staffer from Governor Gary Johnson, you have a very popular state representative, a county commissioner. How are you going to put yourself up as, I am the most unique candidate out of all of these people?
Well, even if you just line our pictures up, you will see, I mean, I'm already the most unique one out of the group. When I think about all these people individually, I don't, in my mind, their resumes or whatever they're carrying isn't attached to them. I can see right through them into their spirit, and I am not flinched at all. I have no, I fear none of them. I think that what they bring to the table, again, what I've told my own party, if you can give me a candidate that I can follow, because I don't have that. I'm out here all alone and I'm pushing on my own. There's no one in front of me. If they can just represent me and inspire me, I'll go home. But because I'm still in the race, that's going to tell you a whole lot. I don't see it. When they talk, it's very plastic, and it doesn't inspire me to really listen. So I keep moving forward. Mine is more of a spiritual journey. It's very ingrained and in depth into Mother Earth and also Father Sky. It's God Himself that's pushing me to, I guess, be better. And if they want to be in this race, they're going to also have to chase me. Because we are on the ground and we've been working very hard for very long. And you even heard about me. So I think we're getting the job done. I think we're saying the right things. I am not a party player when it comes to control. I believe in the people. I believe in we the people, the Constitution. We just celebrated, our birthday, the Declaration of our Independence. And that's very near and dear to my heart, because when you are liberated from oppression and suppression, when you finally understand and taste freedom, it's the most unique and aspiring thing to ever understand. See, because we weren't Americans just because we were born here. We weren't given our citizenship. We were not given it until 1924, and that was only recently. So we were gifted the Constitution, and that is the greatest weapon we could have ever been provided, a shield to protect our freedoms. So when you give freedom to the oppressed, you will see them fight harder and harder for it. And I know exactly what it is to lose your freedom. Because right now in the reservation, the socialistic policies that are being practiced on people to make sure it works, they usually experiment on Indian country. And so when you're talking about medical for all, the Green New Deal, 30 by 30, controlling the food, controlling the water, controlling the supermarkets, controlling the media, that is all communistic, and we have it. And Navajo Nation is communistic. They control every aspect I just named. And not to have your freedom is something impactful. Now, these people that are running against me, they have no idea what that feels like. They've always had it, and they probably forgot about it, neglected it, took it for granted. But they want to be here and to represent, us who have been suppressed and oppressed for so long. It makes no sense. But the prosperity that they talk about is not the prosperity that New Mexico wants. It's one that's ingrained with hard work and something that a lot of these people have never done. When I shake their hands are soft. There's no callus. They have never worked. And so when I talk to them, I'm evaluating heavily. And I've had long conversations with Jay Block because we were friends before this race. I haven't talked to him since. But again, if he inspired me, I wouldn't have never been in this race. And he got in before me, which tells you a lot.
Wow.
So that's where it's at.
Yes, and I believe you have the voice of many people who are simply just frustrated with the current, I guess you could say, political status of how everything's going. I believe you made a good example. When you shake someone's hand, it's very soft. It's not callous. You don't feel that they have worked with their hands maybe at all in a day in their life. So I believe you have a very, very good outlook. Now, I want to talk about a few issues facing New Mexico. Now, so many people have told me there is no way America is going to become a socialist nation, that there's no way that's ever going to happen. But as you just stated with the Navajo Nation, it's already here. It's already
Right.
here. Yeah.
And there's a whole ideal of this globalistic control measure that's going to wrap the earth, I guess, and they're going to save, the earth from the disease, which is people, the cancer. And that's not the way Native Americans think of it. We were gifted this place for us to enjoy and experience life. And in those parts of it, the resources were provided to us. So the land provides food, it also provides energy. We've learned how to harness that energy. And so it's a lot to unpack right now. So we have to break it down. But these people that want to talk about policy within helping us, it's not really helping us, it's hurting us. So the one that comes to mind is the extreme environmentalists. What they do is they say, oh, there's a spotted owl over here, so we can't, touch the forest. They need to be unharmed. But what about all the other animals? And what about the human beings that God put upon this earth? Why do we have to subject to these different things? So the system of it is being twisted and overlapped backwards. And so as Native America, we understand this, and we know that when you begin to clean the forest, as traditionally we've always done, the spotted owl and the black-footed ferret will move and then they'll return. So we know this stuff. So when the environmentalists come in, they try to do these things. It's about control, and it's about shutting down things, which is leading me to the policy of 30 by 30. That's the Biden administration. They've signed into enactment on January 21st of this year. When he first got into office, that's one of the first things he did. And it's renamed America the Beautiful. And what it's going to do, it's going to supposedly conserve 30% of all lands and oceans around the world, including America. So this is for America. And they're going to freeze all of it. So you're talking about private ownership of land and property they're going to come after. So New Mexico already has 34% of it underneath federal control. So they're looking at 30% more. So where's that 30% more going to come from? It's going to come from land ownership. That's why the attack on the cattle industry, the dairy industry, the agriculture, the farms. So if you look into the Midwest of America, the Midwest, the actual wheat belt, they're showing commercials and they're advocating that their farms are now in jeopardy, and they're the ones that feed America. So we have to be really aware on how everything is connected. So in our culture, we have spider women, and she talks about the spider web and how everything is connected. And when one side is touched, the whole thing will move. And that's an actual teaching structure for us to show us that agriculture, cattle, economy, oil and gas, education, all of this is tied together. Now, because we're so oppressed, New Mexico is the poorest state in the nation. So now all of our kids are leaving. They're leaving. Even my older kids are thinking about moving out of New Mexico to go get jobs because there's no jobs here. So we have to create jobs. So what these people are talking about, they're selling 3-point, 5-point campaigns. You know, I have 3 points over here. But New Mexico doesn't have 3 problems and 5 problems. It has 55 problems. And that's a difference between me and them, is I'm able to talk about every problem and find a solution for it. So we are working hard on the ground. We're not just visiting and knocking doors and kissing babies. And no, we are sitting down with people and we are talking. We're talking 2, 3, 4, 6 hours at a time, because we need solution for the state. And so this is what I'm doing. And these other candidates that are working and they think that they have a shot, they're going to have to outwork me. Second thing is, I do not play to the party politics. They want to control me, but they can't, because I'm here for the people. We the people. I believe it wholeheartedly, forever and ever. And I believe in unity. And I will say this, I will fight my own party to save it.
Well said. That is very well said. You know, that is, I will say, I'll have to say this. I don't usually say this often, but I have to say you have probably have one of the most, you're one of the most compassionate and most passionate, enthusiastic people I have seen as of right now when it comes to everything that is going on. And that's truly, I think that is truly admirable. And I think that is a great characteristic. And you have touched on many topics because right now, I believe uh, a recent study had shown what are the best places to live here in the United States. New Mexico was ranked the worst place to live in the United States, the worst place to live. And it's, I mean, it's one of those things you don't want to admit, but it is true. You have so many of our kids going to either Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, or Arizona, or Utah. It's just, I mean, how are you going to fix that problem? To make people, we are the lowest on everything. We are the highest when it comes to unemployment. We have the lowest graduation rates. We have the highest homeless rate, crime rate, and now we are ranked the worst place to live. So, as governor, with all of those issues combined, with all of these challenges combined, how are you going to fix all of those, especially within the span of your first term if elected?
Right. Well, I guess we have to start talking about being heard. So I do have a youth council that I'm building, and I'm talking to the youth right now, and they're telling me exactly what they need. The suicide rate is through the roof. So we have to be able to give them something to live forward. We have to inspire and spark that American dream of each one. They need to know exactly what it is you want to do. We have to shape the educational plan to help them achieve those goals. I think the American dream needs to be driven into the high school programs, because there's some kids that want to take over the family business. They want to go and raise cattle like their dad and their grandfather did before them. They're really, I've met some of the most brilliant agriculture based minded youth in the East Side, and they're sick of school. They're sitting here looking at book stuff, and their Common Core math is ridiculous. And now they're getting, critical race theory shoved down their throats when they look at me and they say, I don't want to feel sorry for you, Miss Bedonie. I don't want to be taught to victimize you, Miss Bedonie, but I do want to follow you. So you're understanding that they're picking apart critical race theory, because critical race theory wants to impact me and tell me that I'm a victim forever and that America owes me something. And that's not what we're saying. Is the youth, I think, is the beginning of it. And then we need to start going into the education process. I think that if you graduate and you come back home to work, that I think New Mexico should be able to help you with your paying down your loans if you chose to get loans. You know, we need to be able to entice people to come back home to raise their children, which means you need better tax breaks. I think the gross receipt tax is one of the worst parts of New Mexico. As a businesswoman, I just hate it. The red tape to start a business is also major. A lot of young people in the 20s and 30s, they do spark a willingness to say, you know what, I think I want to start a business, but I'm scared and I don't know how. And that's one of the big parts of this economy. In order to conquer poverty, you have to empower the people. And that's what we've been doing, is getting independence through prosperity has been through small business ownership. So the entrepreneurial spirit needs to be vested in each and every one of us. So if you want to be a business person, I want to inspire that and give you the easiest journey to it, because you know what, it takes maybe a day to start a business in Texas. It starts maybe a month to get it off the ground in New Mexico, and it takes maybe 2 years or a year in Texas to establish, but that same time it takes 10 years to establish in New Mexico. It's because our small business paradigm is so difficult, and it's sloth, and so it's terrible, and I've been through it. The second thing would be the crime rate. We have to toughen up on a lot of our legislations and our laws. We're letting people go too early. We get slaps on our wrists for all kinds of things. So it's easy for them to commit crimes. That's why we are one of the worst states in this country, because all of us, if not any one of us, had our car stolen. And while I was shopping in Albuquerque, I've had my vehicles broken into numerous times. So you have to carry heavy insurance, and the insurance is through the roof. So yeah, we are not a good state to come and visit either, even though we have the most beautiful environments here. We got everything from, the lakes. And then when you do come across the red rocks and the white sands, it's very beautiful here. So the tourism part of it is there. But when you're going through these towns, you're also seeing these towns turn into ghost towns, because our infrastructure is also falling apart. And then you start looking at medical. Well, how much is our medical industry not there for the people? Because in different parts of these places that I've been traveling, I'm finding out a high rise of cancer in certain places, very high. Well, what's the deal? So then no one's asking the questions, but I am, because I'm a plumber's wife. So I'm asking what kind of pipe you have. And a lot of it's clay pipe. I'm thinking, holy smokes, that's asbestos. So I'm recognizing these things, and I'm going through and I'm looking at their tile, I'm looking at their infrastructure, I'm looking at their paint. I'm like, that's lead paint. I can identify all these things. So I'm traveling through these communities, and I'm looking and I'm watching, and I'm understanding why these communities are completely getting decimated. It's the also the I-40. It just drags everybody past all these towns that used to be flourishing, like Tucumcari, New Mexico. Used to be Tucumcari tonight. Now what is Tucumcari? It's a ghost town almost. So you have to have some kind of compassion for these towns, and you have to be able to invest in that infrastructure, not just the urban settings. And also the urban settings are also dragging water out of New Mexico, where the agriculture and how the people that own land and these water rights, they're getting their actual water sucked out to the metropolitan parts of Albuquerque and Bernalillo and Santa Fe. And they're the ones that are controlling the voting population. So again, the voices are muffled, but then they're losing their water. So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. Like I said, it's a spider web and everything is connected. But once you start working on all of them simultaneously, slowly, and we all start doing it together, I think we could pull our state out of the poverty level. Now, and we will begin, and also the big stuff, of course, everybody always talks about, oil and gas and coal industry and all that. And of course, we're going to get those back online. And because Biden, this is what I always say, is because Biden is doing such a horrible job right now, we will have a Republican president in the next seat. If not Trump, if somebody else will run and win. They will want America to be first. If they want America to be first, then you have to have a governor that's willing to fight all the way to the top to make sure New Mexico's first on that list. And we need to start selling our oil and gas, and we need to get us completely self-sufficient. And self-sufficient also means with food. We need to be eating New Mexico beef and New Mexico agriculture, New Mexico dairy, So we need to make sure that we feed ourselves first before we start trying to ship everything out. We need to make sure that we can purchase our own and also sustain. And that's how you keep families here, is you start to entice them, with small businesses and different things like that. So that's how it's a big loaded question you just asked me, but in my mind, we're creating a solution-based. Right now, the binder is about this thick, And it's huge because I have people from all over New Mexico have contacted me. These are the brilliant minds that have worked in the labs and all these different companies that love New Mexico. They have solution, but no one wanted to listen to them. So now I'm the candidate that's picking all those up, from hydrologists to physicists to, you know, geologists, people that are telling me that what we can and cannot do. And we're creating a plan to save New Mexico. And it's going to be, it's a beautiful plan because it's coming directly from the people. So every day that I pray and I go out, I'm actually building an army, and it's a family. And it's a family of great minds. So that's how we're going to save the state, is we're going to open our doors and we're going to get to work, which means I'm going to be completely exhausted if I win this thing. In 4 years, I'll be ready to go again. So in 8 years, I believe I'll have a good 10 years in the tank, 20 years in the tank to keep trying to fight for my state before we hand it off to the next generation. And that's what I'm looking for in this youth council, is I need to find the best of the best who are willing to stay and also become leaders in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's and you answered, I gave you a loaded question, but you answered it perfectly. So and it's
Thank you.
yeah, you answered it so perfectly. But we have many issues facing New Mexico, and especially nationwide, because I'll touch on that for a bit, because the Biden administration, many people have said that once Biden came in, it's going to be at the state level where where his overreach, government overreach, is going to be curtailed or at least slowed down. We have seen in the state of Missouri, and the governor Mike Parson of Missouri, when Biden had said, quote unquote, we are going to do targeted door-to-door community outreach to convince Americans to get vaccinated. And regardless of what anyone would think of it, many people believe that is a step way too far, and that it's just a total violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. It's a total violation of your rights on that part. We're already seeing the governor of Missouri take action. So when it comes to government overreach, when it comes to, let's say, the vaccines, how are you going to tell Biden and others in higher parts of Congress saying, no, we are not going to do that. We are running our own affairs here. You need to stay out of our way.
Right. Well, that's where the 10th Amendment comes into play. You need a governor that's going to be on that battlefield. Your governor is going to be the biggest and last soldier there. And you need to have someone that'll actually tell the president that their overreach is not welcome, not like that. Second thing, you need to tell the people what's really happening. They can't just let people be walking around the streets. You know, they need to be aware that they're coming. I would say, you know, you need to get your do not trespass, no trespassing signs out. Get them on there big and clear. And you need to tell them that they're not welcome here. And I think that's your American First Amendment right, to be to post those things and tell them that, you know what, back on out. And I would do the same thing. I'm actually going to go get my own signs. I'm gonna say, do not trespass. And we don't want to hear it, because I do not believe in this vaccination. It's not even, it's an experiment. And as from Indian country, we're sick of being experimented on. So no, as for me and my family, you know, we're not going to be the experiment any longer. And I'm hoping that a lot of the Americans, especially New Mexicans, don't fall into that. The government is never here to save us. When the government says we're here to save you, we're in big trouble, right? Isn't that what Reagan said? And also, if the government says you don't need guns, the Native Americans say, well, get 2 guns or 3. and you never trust what the government's telling you. The government should be minimal. It should be less government, and you should have the freedom to, you know, to advocate on your behalf of your family and your community. And that's what representation was, and that's what the forefathers did. So Biden obviously is disconnected from the builders of this nation, and he has no idea what he's talking about. Second thing, I think it's the puppet strings that are pulling on Biden that are telling him to do this, because when I listen to him and watch him, he can't even string a sentence together. Makes me think that this is not his plan, but it's a plan from another part of, you know, I guess, I don't know if it's the party or whatever the powers that be, and what they're, the direction that they're trying to drive this America into more of a globalistic society is what we have to fight back. And America is one of the greatest nations where we do not believe in that. We believe in individual freedom and inalienable rights from God himself. You have the right to protect your family, to have a family, to feed your family, you know, and to raise your family. And so that freedom is there. So Biden is completely lost. He doesn't know what freedom is. and he doesn't know what this Native American thinks of him, really. So that's basically it. So the 10th Amendment can save us, but you have to have a governor to actually be able to push him back.
Yes, absolutely. That's, as you stated, the governor is basically the last line of defense against big government overreach and what would many people call tyranny. And it's
Yep.
also, and as you had mentioned, Biden, many people, when they hear Biden talk, another thing that he had spoke big about is we're going to be united. We're going to be united. No matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or whatever political affiliation you have, we're all going to come together. Now, I'm going to ask you, this is a short question, but have you seen him really follow through on that promise with unity, or has he done exactly the opposite within his first few months? Because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of that. He.
Right. They speak of unity, but my thing is, under what flag are you trying to fly that unity? The unity that we speak of here in New Mexico, what I'm talking about is pure unity and under freedom, the individual spiritual part of it. They're trying to remove God and call it unity, but unity comes from the Spirit of God Himself. He's the glue, so to speak, that mends us together so that our spirits can talk to one another. When spirits in your heart, I guess, speaks to one another, you forget what color people are and what party people are and what, paper they have posted and framed on their wall. All those lines erase when your spirits can talk to one another. And I think that's the key to it, is God Himself to unify the people. And Biden and them are trying to remove God, which means that division is always going to be there. It's going to be very hollow and very dark. And that's my belief system.
Yes, it seems as if Biden and many in his party want to take away God and replace God with the government. So they want to replace it with the government, and you just look up to the government to say, we need help, when that's not the case. And to go back to New Mexico for a bit, one of the biggest things that many New Mexicans are talking about is what's happening right now at the southern border. We have seen Kamala Harris, after so much backlash, even from the mainstream media, even when she made that horrible joke about, I haven't been to Europe. And she tries to say, well, I went to the border by going to El Paso. Yeah, that's basically a vacation. I think I remember our Congresswoman Yvette Harrell confronted her about that and sent a letter to that. Even though she went to El Paso, she never went to the southern border directly, see what's going on right there, how we have so many unaccompanied children coming across the border. We have child trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking at the highest ever. And they stopped the construction of the wall. And now
Right.
Texas is planning on starting construction of their own border wall. So my question to you is,
Right.
how are you going to fix the border crisis?
Well, from my understanding, the material should have already been purchased, right? Bought and paid for. It's just sitting there doing nothing. As a Navajo woman, I always go back to it because people need to understand that I will not negate on anything because it's who I am. We live in hogans, they're round homes at the door. And I always say that there's one way in and there's one way out. But that's our home. So when you enter, you go in a clockwise motion and you take your place, and you also adhere to the house rules. And we tell you exactly what is expected of you. You also will accept all those things, and then we'll feed you. But if you don't like the house rules and you don't want to stay, then you can get up. If you want to take a drink of water, that's fine, but you can also go out the same way you came in. And that's a very organized, respectful way to welcome guests into your home, and also to see if you want them to be part of your family. And that would be a way to protect everybody, so that all the members that are already sitting there already know their place, and they're watching these people come in, and then they're taking their place in the spot that was provided for them. So that's what immigration should be. It should be a very organized process, and it should be a protection of all, so that we don't see child trafficking anymore. We don't see trafficking of, any kind of human beings. It needs to be stringent enough where drugs aren't coming in. It's a mess right now. And my personal feeling is I want to get down there and to show you how serious I was. I see my background is actually welding, structural welding. So I actually want to suit back up, and I want to get down there, and I need to throw some beads down, and I need to actually be part of that process of building that wall. We're going to have to finish it, because right now the population of the world is growing so quickly that people are always looking for prosperity, and what we work so hard for here, they're going to want it, but they're not going to want to work for it. They're going to come and want to take it. And I also feel bad for the people, the legal immigrants that did come here and did it, and they did it right. And they went through the processes. It took a long time. They had to learn, they had to be educated on what it means to be an American. They had to learn civics. They had to learn American government. They had to pledge their allegiance to the United States of America. And then they became citizens. It took some work. Those are the immigrants that I love and I really respect. But the ones that are just falling, running in, those are the ones that we have to be able to, stop that overflow. And so we need to, get the wall built, and we need to have a very structured, protective and organized way of immigration. And for some reason, the federal government, if you watch all the different administrations, for as long as I can remember, all knew that we had an immigration crisis, but no one did anything. Even the Clintons, oh yeah, we have an immigration crisis. And Obama. So how do we not do anything about it? So I want to be the governor that actually, puts the nail in that coffin of, old messes and put it to rest. And when we need to have an immigration at the start, we're going to have an immigration policy that's so staunch, because we are so broke. We are in the red. We cannot take any more people in. It's going to have to be more aggressive than Arizona and Texas, where they're going to be like, you know what, we have to go through California because New Mexico, you just can't get through. Not until we get everything under control and we make sure that we know exactly what we're doing, and then we can start to open our gates again and start receiving. But the federal government needs to take some responsibility for their negligence as well, because you know what, they haven't been playing the game properly either. So, and then now they're sitting here pointing fingers at each other. When the wall started actually going up, we've seen a difference, and we need to be able to protect the families that are right on the border. I know we also pay for education for illegals to come across every day. They're bussed in and they go to school and they're bussed back out, and it's American taxpayer dollars that are paying for that. So if they want that process to continue, then we have to get that border under control. And so my saying, or what I've been saying, is if I become governor, there'll no longer be a crisis. It's over.
Yes, and you mentioned a good point about the federal government not taking responsibility, because Yvette Herrell had sent a letter to our governor asking her to send National Guard troops over at the border to assist Border Patrol. And she said, take your concerns to the federal government. Basically,
oh no.
Yeah. It's basically just giving them
well,
away. Yeah.
I talked to some of the National Guard down south, because I've been down south, and I asked them what their thoughts were. They said that they joined the National Guard because they wanted a job and they wanted to make money. And when Michelle pulled us all off, she says, we all got sent home. And she says she's putting everybody in poverty, and it's because they want to work, and they know there's a crisis, and they're seeing it firsthand, and they're watching people coming in by the thousands. And so, yeah, it is a state situation, even though it was it's a federal responsibility, but now it's become a state issue. So I think that we have to be the parent, and we have to now become the parent of the federal government when it comes to the immigration process.
Absolutely. And it's, as you've mentioned before, what we have to remember is that in the state legislature, because when it comes to the governor's powers, it's not just the federal government that has gone far, it's our governor that has gone far, especially when it comes to COVID and all of that. And the state legislature, even though several bills were introduced by legislators to curb the governor's powers, she not only threatened to veto it, but the Democratic majority in the state legislature would not let it pass, and it never got passed. So, at the state level as a governor, what will you plan to do to make sure that your power as governor is restrained and given to the state legislature and given to the people, and making sure that even your power is curtailed to make sure you can do what you need to do, but at the same time saying, hey, this is up to the people. I cannot go this far, especially with what our governor's currently doing. So how will you tell the state legislature, listen, I need my power restrained because I know what our predecessor did, and we need to do it now?
Right. And it seems like there's a runaway train. Sometimes there's a runaway train inside the legislation, but we've seen it happen this time with the governor's seat. The emergency powers that she had with, they were just they were too powerful, and she was able to do so much. You saw all the small businesses got that were closed down, but the big box stores were allowed to stay open. So it wasn't even or equal or fair across the board. And there was no forgiveness. And the little bit of COVID CARES Act money that they were trickling down to us did not even indent or impact the overhead that we were seeing every month. So being shut down for all those months, it was just detrimental to the economy. And she just had too much power when it came to it. She had too much power to say, oh, this is the science, when it wasn't the science. This is the too much power to say, oh, Fauci knows everything, but then to find out that Fauci was lying the whole time. And she never apologized for any of that. I think that the governor's powers have to be reduced when it seems like it's a runaway train. I think when it gets to a certain point where the people are like, wait a minute. And I think the people need to have that button of emergency shut off, just like at the gas pumps. If something seems like it's just going too fast, too much, they should have an emergency shut off switch and reset the government and call back legislation and call back the governor all into one hearing where the people can come. And she even put a fence around the people's house, the roundhouse. She put two fences around it. And that was ridiculous because I couldn't understand how she felt that she could do that. I mean, that should be a big no-no. But I think that emergency power invested in the people should be given to them. We shouldn't be able to say that, well, I can pick and choose these powers. We cannot legislate for the present. We never should do that. We always legislate for the future, because even for the gun grabbing type thing, the SB5, the red flag laws, we legislated for today. What's going to happen in the future, 10 generations down the road, when we have technology out of control and you only have your single bolt action rifle, because that was the only thing that was given back to us because they decided to curb the type of arm we bared. So you can't legislate for today because you impact tomorrow. So the same thing, what you're asking is, how do I reduce those powers? Is I don't know what the governor will be faced with. I don't know. I don't want to cripple the next few governors that happen to be really great governors. So I'm going to have to say, I think we have to do a shut off switch for the people. There has to be a way for the people to say, wait a minute, and call everybody back. And they should be able to stand and speak to the First Amendment and say exactly what is wrong. And they should be able to push their legislatures according to their representatives to what they need to be done. So I think they need to be able to, I guess, have that jerking effect and drag everybody back into the roundhouse and not just come when all willy-nilly when they feel like they want to show up, because we do have legislatures that don't even show up to the sessions. So yeah, we're thinking very hard on how to do that to be able to limit powers. But I do believe that if we can come up with a plan to limit powers, I'm on board, because I went through this with you guys. We all went through this. And so, yeah, I know that the governor was too powerful. And there's no recall action. Our constitution seems like it's incomplete in the Mexico Constitution. So we need to revisit that to make sure that we're able to, the people keep the power consistently, but the governor, will also be able to have enough power to get the job done. So that's also important to look at.
That is very important to look at. I mean, you look at California, they had a recall petition against their governor, and it worked. Now there's going to be a recall election up in September to recall Gavin Newsom. Perhaps that could be looked at for our current governor. So yeah,
right. That was great. I loved it.
Yes.
So I'm glad. I'm happy for them.
I'm happy they were able to do that, because that showed that they were able to, even in a very blue state of California. And I want to get to a couple more issues
Okay.
before we get going. And so one issue that I really wanted to talk about here when in regards to New Mexico is we have so many registered Democrats here in the state of New Mexico, and there are many who do vote just along the party line. They just vote only Democrat, blue, all the way everywhere, because that's just the way it is. So how are you going to convince moderate Democrats, independents, and other political affiliation to say, I'm the one who can get the job done? We shouldn't look at who's Republican, who's Democrat, who's this party, so and so in that area. are you going to convince all New Mexicans that, listen, I'm the one who can do this. You don't need to look for my political affiliation because I can do the job done regardless of who's in power.
Right. Well, I think it's probably a question you're asking if I can get past the primaries and get the nomination. So it's a general question for the general election. Right now, from what I'm hearing and also seeing being on the ground, a lot of Democrats are calling me. I'm willing to hear them. I don't look at them and see a Democrat. I look at them and I listen to see what their real tragedy is and what they want in a governor. And when I start talking to them, I find that we align pretty much. I'm thinking, wow, you're conservative too, because we worry about our families. We worried about going to church, God, keeping God in the forefront, our education system. We're worried about the economy. These are the things that we all have in common. And that's what I said is when I went through and I realized, wow, my mother is still a Democrat, so is my father, and they will be voting for me. So no big deal. But when you think about it, the moderates are already coming. I'm speaking to them. They call and they email a lot. A lot of them won't say much because they're afraid of backlash and different sorts of types of social inconsistencies. But I don't think I have to convince anyone. I think I just have to speak the truth and stand for what I believe in. If you don't believe in what I'm saying, then vote for Michelle. But when it comes to it, I will keep fighting for the truth of what I believe in, and also those that do align with me. And that has been a huge, I guess, event that we've seen even through the last election in the 2020 cycle. We saw so many people come out. Even when we were driving through at the rallies in Albuquerque, there was a 15-mile train that was going on, flying flags, the American flag. And it's because our values of being an American, having the prosperity, working and keeping what you earn, having the elderly not be taxed, at their elderly age. They've already paid their dues, and to take care of them, to listen to our youth and provide a prosperity avenue so they can go forth and raise their children and have a good life. And I think that if the Democrats just don't think of me as a Republican, but they look at me as a person, then that's what we're going to see, a change in how it's all happening. Because right now, I know the libertarians, I talk to them, they always say, oh, you have a libertarian heart. They know what freedom means to me. They understand me. We don't always agree on certain things, but we also agree to disagree. But I'm willing to listen to them consistently. The independents are the same way. They left these parties because they were frustrated. That frustration I'm also carrying, but I have to bear down and stay a Republican because it is a two-party process. You hate to admit it, but it's the way it is. And I have to fight my own party to save it because it's going down the wrong avenue sometimes. So yeah, so what I'm saying is I just need the people to look at me for the policies and for what we're really saying, and to just, I guess, quiet down the chaos that's being fed by the media. Just quiet down, and I think that we can actually unite and come together. As a governor, I hope to be the most gracious, most understanding governor that New Mexico's ever had. I hope to be of the most service that New Mexico has ever had. I hope to be able to serve so well that people can come into my office without me being overburdened, without them just coming to whine, but to actually come with solution. I'm hoping to be the most memorable governor because she was Native American and she forgave the atrocities that occurred to the people across the land, and that she was able to rise and lead without having any kind of bitterness in her heart. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm not selling anything because this is all real. I'm not making it up because I am who I am. And that's just, so I'm hoping that that'll be enough. If it's not, then I know that I did my best and I can go home and at least, smile and say, I gave it a shot. Whoever wants to try again, go ahead. But we'll see. So I'm not worried about losing, and I'm not worried about, winning, but I think it's going to be in God's hands. It's going to be God's will.
Yes, absolutely. People can see if a person is genuine or not. And I can tell you right now, I believe many people see you as probably one of the most genuine people out there, especially in this race now. And you had mentioned a good part that you have to fight your own party to get things done. I remember Alexis Martinez Johnson, when she won District 3, she was not supported, but establishment. She was not supported, yet she won, and she gave Teresa Leger Fernandez a very good fight. She had a good vote count when she did it, and now she's running for mayor of Santa Fe. So we'll see how that goes on from there. And I have a few more questions. You had mentioned the 2020
Okay.
election. A lot of people, there are many people who have way too many questions in regards to the 2020 election. And
Right.
and then we saw what happened on January 6th, which was just, not
Right.
it was just probably one of the worst things I've ever seen. I think I remember when I first saw that happening, it was like, this is not the way to do it. This is not about violence or doing anything like that. But people still have many questions, and many people feel like they're not going to vote again because of what happened in 2020. So what are you going to do about election integrity to make people say, regardless of who you are, that when you go to the ballot box and you put your whoever you want to represent you, you put the mark next to their name, that you at least believe it's going to be counted? How are you going to do that? And should we adopt something like Georgia did, or how would that be?
Well, right now is the people have to stand up. As candidates, we can't get too involved in the election part of it because it's going to be flagged as conflict of interest. So the people have to do it. And I'm hoping that they do it. I'm watching Roosevelt County right now and a couple other counties that are launching county ordinances to restrict any kind of machine counting, and they're going to demand hand counts and also, integrity within their counties. And that's very crucial and very important that the people actually stand up and hold their county clerks accountable too for the election. So they have to launch these ordinances basically to ban the Dominion machine, because right now Arizona has already, established that the machine was inaccurate. In any kind of business contract you go into, and New Mexico went into contract with Dominion, if the product is faulty or the service is not provided, then the contract should be negated. And I think the people need to understand that, and they need to go and they need to push that at the local level, and it has to start from the bottom and start to move up. And if you have 33 counties that ban the Dominion machine, then what are you going to do? So hand counts will be actually the most viable way to do this, because it's not really hard to count 1,000 ballots at a time when you get people in there to do it. And people are willing to volunteer. So we need to be able to inspire the people to get into their county politics, their city councils, and they need to really voice this and push it and get resolutions pushed to get those ordinances completed. If you want to go the extra measure, you need to get the attorneys involved, and that's what Roosevelt County is doing, which I'm completely impressed with. They're going to go against the Dominion machine because, again, a business contract is null and void if it doesn't provide what it said it's going to provide. So they can actually push that Dominion machine, any kind of counting machine, out. And that would be the best way to ensure that your vote was counted. Second thing would be voter ID. I do think, and I really believe in voter ID. We need to make sure that you are the person voting and casting this ballot. So IDs should be mandatory, and the ID process is not a racial geared thing, because you need an ID for everything from a library card to, providing your insurance for your car, whatever. You need an ID. And so that part of it needs to be handled through the counties to require a voter ID. So they need these packages put through, and I think the people need to really be able to put that through. So people say, well, I'm not going to vote. Well, then the question is, well, how lazy are you? How much does your democracy impact you? Because that's mob rule. And the actual republic that we are fighting for is about the Constitution and the right to be represented, represented properly. So we need to make sure that those people understand that. And the ones that don't want to go and vote, my heart breaks for you, because you let that American spirit die inside your individuality. For me, I can't let it die. I have to get out there and keep pushing. So that's why I'm in this race. And I'm hoping that people will stand up and say enough's enough. We're tired of it. And I'm hoping if we can get all these things under control, that we will go back to a more basic form and non-stressful aspect of voting, where you're just like, okay, the election day, I'm going to go vote. And that's what we did. We were all complacent, and we let this get out of control because we weren't aware. We were busy raising our families, going to work. So, and that's the same thing, as their complacency has now been replaced with frustration. And then, but at the same time, they're still not, the question is, are you doing anything to help the process? So I can't get into it and start, doing the election process and being in those county meetings, because then it becomes a conflict of interest, because it's, oh, she's pushing so she can win and she's going to rig the election. I could just hear it already. So that's what we tell the people, is we need you also to stand up, and that's how you can help this process.
I understand that. That's very well said. So I have one last question for you. And
Okay.
I have one last question for you, because we're just about to hit the 12. We've been here for just about an hour. Time went really
Okay.
quick. But
Yeah.
yeah, it went really quick, but I really enjoyed our conversation. So I have one last question, and this is kind of a loaded one. Do you believe that in 2022, on the federal level and also at the state level with the governors and all that, do you believe that the Republican Party is going to take back the majority, not just in the House, but also in the Senate? And do you believe that with all the signs we have been seeing, do you believe that Donald Trump is going to be running again in 2024?
Okay. Well, from what we've seen and what we experienced on the ground and the grassroots, I believe our state is red. I believe that the mini machines did their jobs here in New Mexico, especially in the big population areas, the populated areas. We worked very hard, and I do believe that he won, because we didn't see any Biden, anything, anywhere, not even signs. We couldn't count. I mean, and we would even do a ratio between when we were flying our flags and campaigning out there and door knocking, getting flipped off the middle finger versus people cheering, clapping, and honking their horns. The ratio difference was probably about 53, I think, to 2 every time we went in every town. So that's what we were seeing. So I was actually counting the middle finger every time we were out, on every day that we went out to campaign. And so that was the ratio that I picked up, and I was like, wow, we have to be winning. There's no way Biden won. Second thing is, I think Biden is screwing up so bad that we will have a Republican president again. The last thing is, I believe Donald Trump is a man of, he's a man who he can't take defeat, not like that. I think he has something going, and I think he's going to come back harder. And I think he might come back, either, if not him, his children. But that's the only way I think that he would take a loss like that, as if his son would take his place. But for him to be a businessman, and for you to be a very successful businessman, even after said failures and never quitting, tells you that he is not one to take a defeat laying down and lick his wounds and go back. This guy's going to come out swinging. And that's the cool thing about, watching politics, is you see the ones that get hit with loss, and then they go into the little hole and they sell their soul to the devil so they could actually make it. And versus the people that take that hit and they keep on coming back. So it feels like a pretty good boxing match, if you say, and I think he's coming back. And yeah, and so I think that we're going to have a Republican president of some kind. I also believe that our governor in New Mexico is also screwed up so bad that the feeling and the grassroots level where I'm going, the animosity that they have for her is really intense, and I'm very surprised to see how bad it is. We will have a Republican governor in office again, because I believe that's the feeling across the board, but people just need to know who. So the fight right now is going to be inside the Republican Party, who's going to emerge as the contender. But I will tell you that I will take it down to the ground, to the bitter end, because I trust no one.
That's the best way to do it. So, Ms. Bedonie, I have a couple things I wanted to say just off the record, but I would like to say, Ms. Bedonie, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us where we could have this discussion. And
You're welcome.
I actually hope, I understand you are a very, very, very busy woman. You're very busy. And hopefully we could do this again sometime. But I really enjoyed our conversation. You answered all my questions perfectly. And I believe that you are probably going to be I think a lot of people are going to watch you. I think a lot of people are going to watch you and see that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is not going to weigh all these pollsters, all these predictors saying that, oh, this is going to be a safe Democrat seat. This is going to lean Democrat. I don't think so. I think this is going to be a very tight, I think this is going to be a very competitive race. And in the end, it's going to be very exciting to see. So, Miss Bedonie, thank you so much for coming again. And
Okay.
hopefully we could have this conversation again. So thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.